Hello, I'm John Davis. I'm a risk management engineer with MICROSOLVED. I've been here about 6 years, and I deal with risk every day. And what I'm here to talk to you today about is our new 80-20 rule of information security. Now, what the 80-20 rule really is a rational way of looking at information security that isn't based so much on throwing money at machines or software packages that people have been wasting their money on over the years, because frankly it hasn't been working. If people have found that things like FISMA and PCI and access controls have failed as security measures. So what we did was look at the real world compromises. How was your network being compromised? Who was doing it? What's the real threats out there? How are they going about doing it? And came up with a group of 13 individual security projects that not only help to counter that real world threat, but save you a ton of money at the same time. For example, our number one project is mapping assets, data flows, and trust relationships. I mean, how can you protect something if you don't know what you have? And what we find looking at organizations is they really don't know what they have in the organization, or what trusts what, or how information flows, or how it's protected. And some of the other areas that are covered in the 80-20 rule are things like rational risk assessment and ongoing minimization of threat surfaces or attack surfaces. For example, this is such things as assessing the security of your internal and external networks, and especially doing application security assessments. Because mostly what's going on now is hackers are attacking your applications. They're coming into the network from the side, not directly at your frontline machines. They're getting at it from ancillary machines, sitting on your network for a long time. You don't even know they're there, and suddenly you'll find yourself attacked, and all your information is gone. So that's what we're trying to do. Is trying to look at what risk really is in your organization. You know, some of the questions you might ask about, what is the 80-20 rule? What does it entail? What are we asking you to do? And like I said before, one of the things is we want you to map the assets that you have, the trust relationships between things, the way data flows in your network. We also want you to do risk assessment and threat modeling. For one thing, why protect against a threat that's not real? You got to know what threats are actually out there and counter those. And we're not talking about big, gigantic risk assessments and all that sort of thing, enterprise-wide things that take months and months, and by the time you get the reports back, they're not doing you any good because that particular risk is past. Talking about smaller scale risk assessments that you do every day in-house. Every time you add something new to your network or you change something on your network, you have to base these things on risk. You probably have all heard about things like enterprise risk management and governance, risk management, and compliance. This is the wave of the future, and all organizations eventually are going to base their whole business model on risk. Also, you want to minimize attack surfaces, basically doing vulnerability assessments of internal and external networks, and especially applications, to make sure that what you have shows the least amount of information to any possible attacker. I mean, we look at networks and things from the perspective of an attacker. We see what can they see from the outside when they're looking at your network. What can they see from the inside when they're looking at your network, and minimize all that sort of stuff so that they have much less to attack. Also, one of the most important things included in the 80-20 rule is egress filtering and monitoring. Now, it's one thing for an attacker to get into your network and even view your information, but if they can't get the information back out of the network it's not going to do them any good. I mean, mostly what's being stolen nowadays is not only things like credit card data and personal information, but intellectual property of companies. In fact, in 2004, the federal government had a report that showed that about $46 billion a year was being lost to cybercrime. Well, 6 years later here, they estimate between 2008 and 2009, $1 trillion was lost in America alone in intellectual property rights due to cybercrime. So egress filtering is most important, and one of the things that you should really do in this. Also, network enclaving. What we're talking about there is splitting your network up into segments so that and then letting your people access only those segments of the network that they need to see to do their jobs, only those assets and resources and information inside your network that they need to see. If you're giving everybody carte blanche to get in there and see whatever's on your network, well, the same thing can happen with a cyber criminal. Once they get themselves in, they are going to have the ability to see all that. But if they can only steal one little thing at a time, you're much better off. Now, also, one of the other things here that costs you a lot of money that's proved to be not that valuable is things like antivirus and IDS and IPS. Now, I'm not saying you don't need these things, but you shouldn't spend a ton of money on them because they don't really work. They're what's called signature-based anomaly detectors. In other words, they're reactive. They look at things that have already happened and they protect you against different kind of exploits that already exist. Unfortunately, the modern world of threats includes very competent and very talented and very motivated cyber criminals that write their own custom code. They use different ways of getting in that antivirus and IDS and IPS just don't catch. So we're looking at real anomaly-based detection, things like honeypots, things like SIMEs that notice anomalies, notice unusual patterns of what's happening in your network and detect it that way. One of the other projects in the 80-20 rule is making sure that you have a comprehensive set of information security policies and procedures. How can you possibly expect your people to do good information security if they don't know what your policy is or how to go about doing it? It's not only having rational policies, not these boilerplates that you get that, like just based on ISO 27002 or something like that everybody has, but looking at each process in your business, making sure that you have a policy for every process that you do and procedures for every policy that you have in a real world and rational way, and then you've got to communicate those to all of your people. Once they know what they're supposed to do, then they'll do it. And this comes into the next point of it, and this is probably one of the most important parts of the 80-20 rule, is educating your people, getting their buy-in in the information security process. One thing that most people find in organizations is that they just have training once a year or maybe get a few emails or have some posters on the wall. And this isn't very effective. What you want to do is get your people to actually be interested in helping you in information security. Information security is not the job of just your information security team. It's not just the job of IT or HR or any other individual in an organization. Every single person in the organization is responsible for information security. And it's been shown that people, your own employees, regular users on your network, are twice as likely to notice security problems or incidents than any kind of machine or software package out there, any kind at all. So we not only want to we show you ways to get your people involved in information security. Give them some incentives. Don't punish them for doing bad things in security. Reward them for doing good things in security. And that's not the only training we're talking about. We're making sure that the proper people in your organization have the security skill sets they need to do the job correctly. For example, network administrators, database administrators, code developers. These kind of people are very skilled at what they do, and their job is, making programs and networks that work.